Brother A.H. MacMillan is well known to all of us because of his many years of faithful service. He has been a dedicated servant of Jehovah since 1900 and has observed how Jehovah deals with his servants. We shall benefit greatly by listening to our older brother discuss faithfulness in small things. Brother MacMillan.
Jehovah God, the Father of all creation, provided His Word, the Bible, as a guide to His dedicated children in order that they might clearly understand what He requires of them. His requirements are not burdensome, but He exacts exclusive devotion, obedience, and faithfulness from all. Faithfulness in small and great things is essential to obtaining the gift of everlasting life through Jesus Christ our Lord. But what does it mean to be faithful? To be faithful means to be dependable, loyal, true, trustworthy, and conscientious in performing duty. The greatest example of faithfulness we can think of is Jehovah God. Moses told the Israelites as follows, "You well know that Jehovah, your God, is the God, the faithful God, keeping covenant and loving kindness in the case of those who love Him." Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 9. Then the Apostle Paul wrote, "God is faithful." And again, "Let us hold fast the public declaration of our hope without wavering, for He is faithful that promised." God's Word also stresses the faithfulness of Jesus. "Consider Jesus," said the Apostle Paul. "He was faithful. He is termed the faithful witness, the faithful and true witness, and the faithful and true one." Then we note the remnant, the channel that Jehovah is using to dispense things new and old. It is referred to in the Bible as the faithful and discreet slave, also as the faithful steward and the discreet one. The remnant for many years now has indeed proved faithful to kingdom interests, devoted or committed to it. Matthew chapter 24, verse 45, Luke chapter 12 and verse 42. The divine will for each of us is that we likewise prove faithful. And that means, as noted in our year text, walking in our integrity. As we read, "What is looked for in stewards, that is a man be found faithful. Faithfulness is rewarded by spiritual joy and prosperity, and also by greater privileges of service at the present time and in the new world." All this is in line with the words of Jesus at Luke chapter 19 and verse 17, where He said, "Well done, good slave. Because in a very small matter you have proved yourself faithful, accept authority over 10 cities." Now notice the emphasis on small things. In a very small matter, this slave had proved faithful. In this matter of faithfulness in small things, Jehovah God Himself sets the example. How great He is to create the entire boundless universe by His almighty power. Compared to the universe, how small is this earth? Why, the greatest nation on earth is like a drop of water as a fine dust in the balance. Yet God condescends to take note of us if we have the right heart condition. God interests Himself in small things and shows Himself faithful in His dealings with them. Note Psalm 113, verse 6, and Isaiah chapter 66, verse 2 to confirm that statement. Then at Matthew chapter 10 and verse 29, Jesus said, "2 sparrows are sold for 1.5 cents according to our value, yet not one of them will fall to the ground without your Father's knowledge. The very hairs of your head are numbered. Have no fear. You are worth more than many sparrows." Jesus, the beloved Son of God, is also an example of faithfulness in small things. Though used to create all things seen and unseen, except himself, the Logos was willing to confine his activity to that of a human creature. And in that earthly ministry, he was faithful in small as well as great things. He did not neglect incidental witnessing, even was to a woman of questionable reputation at the well of Sychar. You find that in the 4th chapter of John. In fact, this principle of being faithful in small things is driven home to us time and again in the Scriptures. Thus, in the very beginning, Adam and Eve were asked to be faithful in a very small thing, not eating the fruit of a certain tree. But because of selfishness, however, they proved unfaithful and so lost life and all that went with it. Then we find in the law of Moses, it required faithfulness in many small things. Now we call to your attention this noted general of Syria by the name of Naaman. He was a leper. So he went to the home of Elisha to be healed. But when he got there, Elisha didn't come down and bow before him, but told him to go and dip himself 7 times in the Jordan River. But this dignified general of Syria refused. It was beneath his dignity to do such a small thing. Then one of his servants said to him, "Had it been a great thing the prophet himself had spoken to you, would you not do it?" Naaman took the hint and humbled himself, did the small thing of dipping himself 7 times in the Jordan, and was miraculously cured of his leprosy. 2 Kings chapter 5, verse 13. So all of us are faced with the test of being faithful in small things. In a worldwide organization, there are many different positions that must be filled. Some seem very large and important, while others look small and insignificant. Further, due to certain circumstances over which we have no control, we may be limited to doing small things. However, let us never forget that the individual publisher in Jehovah's organization occupies the key position. Therefore, to carry out our obligations as publishers, we must never forget to be faithful in small things. Why, our very spiritual health depends upon our being faithful in them. Reading the text and comment each day and giving some thought to them seem to be very small things. Yet, we know they're very important to our spiritual well-being. So is prayer, when we get up and when we retire and at meal times. You remember Deuteronomy chapter 11, verse 19, Moses told the children of Israel to teach their sons when they lie down and when they get up. Now then, the oral review of Theocratic Ministry School is a very small thing, but let us not neglect preparing for it because it's only 5 minutes long. In fact, commenting at any meeting is a small thing, perhaps only a few sentences. But don't you feel much better after a meeting if you gave a comment than if you only wished you had? 2, coming to meeting a little early, or at least on time, is a very small thing. Yet, there's a blessing in it for the speaker, for our brothers whom we do not disturb, and for ourselves. The same is true regarding our field service. There are many small things we must be faithful in if we are going to be effective, fruitful ministers. Keeping the house-to-house record might seem to some to be a very small thing. So are the use of handbills and tracts, having a sermon clearly in mind, being equipped with the proper literature and so forth. Placing a single magazine might seem to be a very small thing, but experience proves that some of the Lord's other sheep have been found because a publisher made a record of the placement of a magazine and then made a back call. In fact, we might say all results depend upon our being faithful in just little things. If we keep no house-to-house record, we'll not make any back calls. If we do not make back calls, we'll have no home Bible studies. If we have no home Bible studies, no new ones will get started on the way. If no new ones get started, there will be no increase in the New World Society. Also, in small things, the rule applies that there is more happiness in giving than there is in receiving. Besides, if we are faithful in small things, Jehovah's Word assures us He will give us still greater things of the privileges of service. John 14:12, Jesus said this, "Ye will do greater works than these that I am doing, because I am going to the Father." Now, I recall many years ago when Jehovah began to build up the New World Society, there was a member of the Bethel family who was a very polished speaker. Oh, he looked down on going from house to house. Oh, yes, it was all right for the sisters, also for brothers who could not give eloquent talks like he did. But as for him, he could do more good by just giving public lectures. Some of his admiring friends thought the same, and so they spent much time and money arranging for opportunities for this brilliant speaker to give his talks. However, in time the various congregations saw their mistake and asked the brother to join them in the house-to-house work. Why, he was offended at this and left the organization. You know what he's doing today? Well, some of you have guessed it, I suppose. He's holding forth as a clergyman in the Catholic sect. Too proud to be faithful in small things, he lost Jehovah's Spirit entirely. Now think of another member of the Bethel family who was a faithful servant and who carried out the instructions given, taking good care of the small things given him to do. He was not always sent to preach to large throngs, even though he was a forceful speaker, but to assist small congregations. He did not neglect any privilege of service just because it was small and did not bring him praise. He manifested faithfulness in small things. He later became the second president of the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society. The very same thing was also true of the brother who some 25 years later became the third president of the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society. Understanding the organizational principle that is involved will help us to show faithfulness in small things committed to our care. Not all positions can be of like prominence, yet all are important. The Apostle Paul drives that point home in his illustration of the human body at 1 Corinthians chapter 12. Each one is an essential part of the body, and each one has need of the others. Or we might take the watch as an illustration. The tiniest part, bearing, jewel, or wheel, is important to the watch-keeping right time. So there can be only one president of the society, only one district servant in the district, only one congregation servant in the congregation. Yet each one is essential to the proper functioning of the body, the local congregation. Without the individual publisher, there would be no congregation, no district, in fact, no society. So let us be thankful to be part of the New World Society and have a share in the work, no matter how small our individual part may be. Some of our brothers and sisters at Bethel have been serving faithfully in small things for 30 years or more, in the kitchen as a cook, or in the laundry mending linens, cleaning as janitor from day to day and year to year, never neglecting personal study, and being not only active but also very fruitful in the field ministry. So they're happy and spiritually prosperous. The work has to be done, and we look to Jehovah through His channel to assign us just where He wants us to be. So then, you see, our reward depends upon our faithfulness, not upon whether we are doing some large or small things. Even though we may be infirm or sick, we can be faithful in small things. We have a sister near here who has been bedridden for more than 30 years, having no use of hands or feet, and for 8 years being totally blind. Yet, when visited by friends, she manifests such joy, cheerfulness, and thankfulness, and she is mentally alert, so as to be able to encourage those who visit her. Now, among us here today, in one of the sections, is a faithful group of people who are deaf and mute. But do you think they're discouraged? They are little noticed and are not able to take much part in theocratic activities, but they're here and they're faithful to Jehovah, and they will be blessed by Him for their devotion. There's a brother at the Bethel over We have a brother at the Bethel over 80 years old. Yet he continues to work each day in the office and to get out on the street magazine work, even though because of a weak limb he cannot climb stairs. So if people like this can be regular publishers, I'd like to ask who can afford to be an irregular one. Even if you cannot go out in the house-to-house work, you can be faithful in small things. You can witness by telephone, or you can write letters. At any event, you can witness to those who come to see you and can be of encouragement to your brothers when they visit you by manifesting appreciation. No matter how small our privileges may be, if we're faithful in them, we will have the joy of Jehovah, His approval and blessing. You can thus be a living epistle, known and read of men. Now, a word to the sisters. You should not be discouraged because you cannot give public talks and take the lead in the congregation. Yet, do you not have a grand and joyous privilege of service? Surely house-to-house preaching, back call, and home Bible study activity, street and incidental witnessing, training other sisters, or even your own children in the ministry are all very important. Also, manifesting loyalty to the brothers taking the lead. Besides, by practicing scripture principles, you sisters can be even more effective than the brothers who can expound those principles eloquently from the platform. So let sisters not depreciate the small things they are privileged to do, but be faithful in them. Be eager to assist your brothers and be thankful you are not burdened down with their weighty responsibilities. Now, the test of being faithful in small things, also peculiar interest to the young folk. Until you're able to give the doorstep sermon, you can do street witnessing and house-to-house magazine work. You also have many special opportunities of witnessing to your schoolmates and school teachers. In fact, some young children are conducting studies with their schoolmates. Do you realize that Samuel served full time at the tabernacle in Shiloh before he reached his teens? In fact, as soon as he was weaned. Jesus, at the age of 12, did what we might term vacation pioneering. So young children can show faithfulness in small things. Then again, some have limited privileges due to poverty or lack of education or because of being isolated. Some brothers in Africa become qualified even though illiterate. Our yearbook tells us of fine results obtained by isolated publishers and of others overcoming obstacles caused by extreme poverty. No matter what our obstacles may be, we can study the truth, we can pray, we can witness and associate with those as we have opportunity. We can be faithful in small things, and that is what Jehovah requires, as Paul emphasized in 2 Corinthians chapter 8, verse 12, where we read, "For if the readiness is there first, it is especially acceptable according to what a person has, and not according to what he does not have." Perhaps more than to any others is the test of faithfulness in small things brought to those of advanced years, especially such as have spent their lives in Jehovah's service. Now, an aging congregation servant may have to step aside for a young, energetic brother. Should he feel hurt about that? No. He should be thankful for the privileges he has enjoyed. and that God has provided someone who can handle the assignment more thoroughly and be glad to cooperate with the one replacing him. Even as the Watchtower of January 15, 1958 has so well brought out on the subject of overseers. There are some who in times past were traveling representatives of the society and who held prominent positions, but now do not have even a servant's position in the local congregation. Do these bemoan their lot and grow indifferent to the privileges they have? Far from it. They gladly serve to the extent they can, both in the regular work at the Bethel and in the field service. There's another brother at Bethel who is over 90 years old. Still, he holds a responsible position and is on the job every day. When weather is good, he gets out in the service as his strength will permit. So then, to the old-timers, I say, let our hearts overflow with gratitude as we note how grandly the New World Society is marching forward and how Bible prophecies are being fulfilled. Serve faithfully in small things and draw comfort from the words of Psalm 92:13, where we read, "Those who are planted in the house of Jehovah, in the courtyards of our God, they will blossom forth. They will keep on thriving during gray-headedness." The essential thing is not the position we personally hold, but having the work done harmoniously and in the best possible manner. And if our sphere of activity is limited because of old age, poor health, or other conditions over which we have no control, let us prove faithful in the small things that we are given to do. The world, of course, looks down on small things. Jehovah's Witnesses were contemptuously referred to as the smallest and least respected sect in America some years ago. Yes, in 1918, the enemies of Jehovah's organization conspired to destroy it from the earth, and they made us look small and insignificant for a time. Oh, yes, they were quite sure they had silenced Jehovah's voice in the earth and congratulated themselves on having done a good job. For now they would no longer be tormented by that pestiferous bunch who continually exposed their false teachings and took their most active workers away from them. That was a great battle for the witnesses. I know, because as a young man I was in the midst of that battle, fighting on Jehovah's side. In 1919, the witnesses were revived and began greater activities than ever before. Now take a look at us. I'll tell you there's a difference, isn't there? While the old world over which while the old world over which Satan rules is rapidly going to pieces, and the various groups of nations are making pacts for mutual protection against other groups, all looking forward to the day when they may rule the world. You see, they are not aware of the fact that Christ the Lord is now King of the new world, and these upstarts will soon be removed at Armageddon, while the new world society is being drawn closer and closer together as the servants of Jehovah. Since the early morning of human time, mankind has not witnessed a gathering like this one. Thousands of dedicated men, women, and children from the four corners of the earth of different color and speech gathered here in peace and unity to worship Jehovah in spirit and in truth and learn the divine will for them as they continue preaching the good news of God's established kingdom to the nations of the earth as a witness. Soon the battle of Armageddon will break over the earth, in which battle the selfish, warring nations of the earth will go down to eternal destruction. But Jehovah's New World Society will be carried safely through the battle, as Noah and his family were carried over the flood that destroyed the old world. They will land safely on the shores of the new world of righteousness, where there will be peace, safety, and prosperity forevermore. There they will continue singing the praises of their great God Jehovah and proclaiming His majesty and universal sovereignty.